Another day, another quarterback trade. The Indianapolis Colts have shipped Carson Wentz to Washington. So the Wentz marriage lasts just one season in Indy. The Colts gave up a first-round pick and a third-round pick to get Wentz from Philly and shipped him out today with a second-rounder for a bunch of day 2 picks, some with conditions that can make 3 of 2. So there's no other way to phrase it. This is a huge loss for the Indianapolis Colts and general manager Chris Ballard. To make that deal, when you think about it 1 year ago and then to make that deal today, that's a loss. You know, yesterday's blockbuster, Russell Wilson, Seattle, Denver, that was a win for everyone. Today, it's the old loss. Loss for everybody involved. Jim Irsay wanted Carson Wentz off the Indianapolis Colts in the worst possible way. And I get it. You could make the case that Wentz losing Week 18 against Jacksonville was the worst regular season loss in the history of the NFL. Seriously. Consider the ramifications. Win, and you make the playoffs. Consider Indy was a 2-touchdown favorite. Consider that Jacksonville was literally the worst team in the league and has the number 1 pick. Consider that the Colts had just beat the likes of the Patriots and the Bills down the stretch, and Indianapolis was going to be dangerous come playoff time. Now, being fair, listen, Wentz was okay in Indy. Not terrible. I mean, these are not awful numbers here, but not good enough to win big. I love Carson Wentz in the 2016 draft. I loved him, and he was en route to winning the MVP in 2017 before he got hurt. He was so good and so tough and so clutch down the stretch for Philly in 2019, but then awful in 2020, like the worst. And at some point, you just have to acknowledge he's never going to be great. He's never going to be that consistent. He's just not that good. You can't bank on Carson Wentz. And yet here's Washington, a franchise that has had no stability. And they're bringing in Carson Wentz. And you don't go to Washington and all of a sudden right the ship. It's the Titanic. This deal doesn't make Washington better than the Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. Come on. Washington needed last year in the draft to trade up like Chicago and pick a quarterback. And we first guessed that. Carson Wentz is like reshuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic. The boat sinks. This is going to be Ron Rivera's 3rd season in Washington and his 3rd straight losing season written all over it. How about this? The Commanders are taking on the entire $28 million of Carson Wentz's contract. They're taking on the entire contract. Frank Reich begged the Colts to go get Carson Wentz. If Frank Reich is getting rid of him after 1 year, I mean, you should run away. I mean, you're taking on the money and you give him a pick. The whole thing is crazy. It's insane. Should have signed Jameis Winston and lower the salary cap and don't take on the money and keep the picks. I mean, Carson Wentz isn't the answer. He comes in leading the league in question marks. Washington fans had major high hopes for real improvement at the quarterback position. They wanted Russell Wilson. This is the sad trombone of a door prize. Kevin Durant absolutely nailed it. That was a complete masterclass by Kyrie Irving last night. You know, sometimes it's easy to forget. Kyrie makes it easy to forget, but Kyrie Irving is one of the best and most talented players in the NBA. He's a megastar. He's a wizard. Last night in Charlotte, and let's call it a must-win game with the Nets losers of 17 of the last 20, Kyrie put on a breathtaking show. 15-19 from the field, 9 threes, a 50-burger in the points column. My goodness, this is why Kevin Durant wanted to team with him in the first place. That's the Kyrie Irving that LeBron won a championship with. And obviously, flip side, of course, is Kyrie is a knucklehead and torpedoed the Cavs and the Celtics and the Nets, and, you know, not being vaccinated and available for the home games is a total killer. But this is why, and I'm guilty, we as a show are guilty, you can never eliminate Brooklyn when talking about the East. Look, Philly and Kyrie's old friend James Harden, make no mistake, they're the team to beat. Milwaukee is number 2 on my list, but the upside with Kyrie and with KD together, why I put Brooklyn ahead of teams that I like a lot that are really good, including Miami and Boston and Chicago, when it comes to winning the Eastern Conference. Not winning a round or two, winning the East. That's the upside here when it comes to the Nets. Now, chances are Nets are going to be failures, right? Let's make sure we're clear. Ben Simmons hasn't played, no time for chemistry, and while the vaccination rules should change in Brooklyn and New York City, they haven't quite yet, and that's a problem. Last night was special. Last night was division, but Kyrie and the Nets, just big picture, cannot get out of their own way. I'm getting those familiar sweats again. I know that when we watch Selection Sunday on CBS, I'm going to start itching and pacing and foaming at the mouth with anticipation for Mark Few's Gonzaga Bulldogs. The Zags are the best team in college basketball, bar none. They won the WCC tournament last night, and while to some it feels like the Gonzaga Invitational, let's make sure we're clear. The Bulldogs are loaded. They beat a really good, legit St. Mary's team, a legit top 25 team. Gonzaga deserves to be the number one. Gonzaga deserves to be favored to cut down the Nets. Gonzaga's amazing. And yes, I'm still scarred by last year. But maybe it's me. Maybe I need to get over it. I mean, Chet Holmgren, the freshman, he's a unicorn with his freakish size and shooting. Drew Timme, he's a rock star. I'm rooting so hard for Gonzaga to win it all. It's the only thing missing on Mark Few's legendary resume. Turning Gonzaga in Spokane, Washington into a national powerhouse is just incredible. I do think this year there are 8 to 12 teams that could win the entire thing. Obviously, all the others are from better conferences. I think it's me. I just have to get over picking Gonzaga after last season and the Zags getting rocked by Baylor. All last year I said Gonzaga was going to win the whole thing, and they were that close and then let me down. I know it feels like deja vu all over again, but Gonzaga is going to enter March Madness again as the best team in the country. What could possibly go wrong? We're shining on football. 2 more Champions League matches today on CBS and Paramount Plus, which kicked off with Manchester City playing to a 0-0 tie against Sporting. But Man City moves on with a 5-0 aggregate score. In the other game of the afternoon, between Real Madrid and PSG, how about our guy? Karim Benzema got the scoring started for Real in the 61st minute to pull even, but Karim, he was on one today. 2 goals in 2 minutes to give Real a 3-1 lead and push Real Madrid through to the Champions League quarterfinals. My guy Karim with the hat trick. PSG suffers the epic collapse. So let's shine on some more football, where Carson Wentz, as we said to start the show, was shipped off to Washington. So that means Frank Reich and the Indianapolis Colts will now be in search of another starting quarterback. And when I say another starting quarterback, I'm talking about the Colts in search of their 5th starting quarterback in the last 5 seasons. And that's a bad look here for Indianapolis. Obviously, Frank Reich, was not there for all of this, but listen, this is a mess here, an absolute mess. And boy, it's going to be interesting to see who they bring in, because we talked about it. Wentz had to go, and obviously Jim Irsay couldn't stand them, but now you got to find someone better. Jimmy Garoppolo is certainly safer. Jimmy Garoppolo makes sense because Jimmy Garoppolo beats the Jacksonville Jaguars, something obviously that at the end of the day, something that Carson Wentz couldn't do. If you want to do better, go out and pick up the phone and final year of the contract for Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. See if Kirk Cousins can ultimately join your football team. That's, to me, the 2 guys that you need to pick up the phone and see if they're available are Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr. I would never in a million years trade Derek Carr if I'm the Vegas Raiders, but sometimes I feel like I like him more than Vegas does. Kirk Cousins would be a major upgrade. Jimmy Garoppolo, it's probably going to happen. It makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of buzz, a lot of reports, a lot of smoke around it. It's a safer option. It's good. You can make the playoffs next year with Jimmy Garoppolo as your starting quarterback. Are you going to win a Super Bowl? And they've got Super Bowl talent with Jonathan Taylor in that defense. No, you're not going to win a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. More news from around the NFL, where the Giants, according to multiple reports, are interested in signing Mitch Trubisky. Now, a couple of reports say sign Mitch Trubisky to compete with Daniel Jones. No, you don't sign Mitch Trubisky and pay him what he's going to command on the open market to compete with Daniel Jones. If, in fact, you sign Mitch Trubisky, you tell Daniel Jones to get the hell out of here. Remember, Joe Schein, the great new general manager, Brian Daboll, the great new head coach, they were in Buffalo. That means they had Mitch Trubisky a year ago. And I think that Daboll, look, you take this job, you want someone like Trubisky. Joe Schein, got to see him in practice. Trubisky played well in the preseason. Look, Mitch Trubisky was set up to fail in Chicago. Obviously, a lot of the failures there, we learned that last year, if you didn't know, was all about Matt Nagy at the end of the day. So I think that Trubisky got his PhD in quarterback play, sitting and learning from Daboll, from Josh Allen. And yeah, if I'm a Giants fan, I would be elated to have Trubisky as opposed to Daniel Jones. Another reminder that Dave Gettleman was the worst. How about the Seattle Seahawks? Their franchise-altering moves continued late Tuesday as they released one of my all-time favorite players, Bobby Wagner. And look, this had to happen because they're clearly breaking it down to build it back up. The move will save the Seahawks over $16 million cap space, but I voted Bobby Wagner first-team All-Pro last year. And if I'm the Rams or the Bills or the Packers or the Chiefs, the Cowboys with the Dan Quinn connection, I would look into bringing in Bobby Wagner. I could see him being just a gem for one of those 5 teams. For a lot of Seattle fans interacting with Seahawks fans on my SiriusXM radio show today, they're even more sad, and I get it, about Wagner being an ex-Seahawk than Russell Wilson. Listen, Bobby Wagner is a first-ballot Hall of Famer, epitome of class, great player. But it's time to cut the cord and move it forward. I feel terrible for Seattle, but it had to happen.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the bell for more videos.